Oh my God. Like I said on PKN that despite all of these videos about people dying while hiking, mountaineering, canyoning, it makes me want to go do it because the reasons they're getting into trouble are always stupidity or like arrogance. Like there was one guy who liked to hike ultralight and he just went off to a place where he couldn't survive and died basically because he was arrogant. There was a couple that thought they were taking a fucking shortcut in a blizzard and just drove off into a nature preserve because they couldn't tell they were on gravel instead of pavement because of the snow. Went 50 miles into the wilderness and got the truck stuck. Ended up losing all of their toes and barely getting out alive by the time they were done. Because
they both lost all their toes?
They both lost all their toes, husband and wife. They had the baby in like a sleeping bag, dragging it through the snow. And instead of turning around and going the way they had come in, which was 50 miles, they looked at the map and they were like, oh, we could just cut across the wilderness area and it's about 20. But that's mountains and rivers and shit. Yeah. And they're wearing like sweats because they didn't expect to go mountaineering that day. So like the woman, like she gives out a gas like 10 miles in. He has to put her in a cave, go back to the truck, and then go 50 miles to help. He lost all his toes.
Did the baby die?
The baby was fine. It was breastfeeding and staying in like, I don't know, 3 layers of shit. You know, it was going to live. In a situation like that, the baby will live as long as the mom will. But like they both lost all their toes. And in the interviews with them, the wife's like, oh, I didn't mind losing all my toes as long as little Jesse lived. And I was thinking like, I'd be so mad at that man who like had military service. And the whole trip was to go to like a second cousin's funeral or some shit.
No, who
not
cares?
A necessary. Yeah. There was every single one of those stories starts that way. It's like, they shouldn't be there to begin with. There were these 3 old men who took some 15-year-old Boy Scouts into the Grand Canyon and got lost. And as each of the old men fails, like physically, they get left behind until it's just the boys climbing down a 200-foot sheer rock face to get to the Colorado River. One of the 3 boys dies of dehydration 100 yards from the river.
Oh, dehydration 100 yards from the river?
They couldn't they couldn't hook him up? Like
he collapsed. They ran the rest of the distance, came back with water, and they got rescue services to him as soon because they ran into like kayakers when they got to the river. But they helicoptered in. It didn't matter. They were like, "Sorry, your friend's dead." And all the old men lived, but they're all just fucked. Like they went into the desert, and on day 1 of a day 3 thing, 75% of their water is gone. It's such easy math to know you got to turn around.
Yeah, like it's more than. That's a horrible amount. How do you not notice that? Like, hey, does everybody have their water? I only got a couple sips left. All right, forge ahead, boys. We're only 2,500 miles from the river.
They were so far away from the river, and apparently it was some like unusual heat wave there, so it was 112 degrees in the canyon.
Oof.
All
I don't know how the old men
like
didn't die then.
But Woody, didn't you go on a pretty considerable hike? Through a trail or something with a friend?
Yeah, the John Muir Trail. I did it with a couple of friends.
How far is that?
We went, I think, 80 miles.
That's a serious hike. How many days?
7.
Okay.
No, we planned 7. I think we did it in 6 or 5.
Okay. Yeah. These people will end up, obviously they're doing death marches. It's like, let's get out of here. We're going to die. And they'll be doing 20 miles a day. And it's like, oh my God. And their feet are rotting off. Like they have not just blisters, but sometimes jungle fungus and like all sorts of nasty stuff going on. That's the part with me. I'm kind of a bitch about my feet. Once I get a blister or something, or like, I don't know if you've ever had like shoes that are rubbing the back.
Yeah, I had.
Center, like
one of the guys I was with was a fucking trooper. Like he had blisters on his feet that were as bad as any blisters you've seen in real life. They covered the entire back edge, like not just the back of his heel, but the back of his heel wrapping around. The bottom of his heel was blistered. And at the end of like at camp, he would just peel off more skin than I knew you had to spare.
Fuck.
And he never complained once.
What
he didn't
a man.
even mention that his feet
was
hurt.
he ex-military or something? Like who is this man? Is he like an accountant or something? What's his background?
He was PKA Dan's friend from childhood. Just nice guy.
Dude.
Yeah.
I don't have that in me. Like growing up, we would work hard, but if I ever got blisters, I was like, well, I'm done. That's why I'm always so serious about. I always wear gloves with anything I do. That's like, if I'm gonna do mechanic work or go under a house or anything, I'd always put leather gloves on. And Dad would even give me a hard time, like, get your gloves on, let's go. And then some jobs, it's like you're gonna get sucked in wearing those fucking gloves. This is not a glove job. Anything with a spinning thing, it's like, you know, I don't do that. But I was wearing my gloves the other day, operating a side grinder. My finger got sucked in, and it fucked the glove up, not me. And it was like, oh, thank God. Like the glove is all sanded down. I can see my finger through it, but I'm fine.
Yeah. Angle grinder is one where I'm not sure. You know, would you maybe just glanced off it and not been hurt, but you got pulled in a little more? Or like you said, like I've also had it where like the last inch of my glove got pulled into a thing, but not my finger. You know, maybe it saved me.
Yeah.
But
I don't have the safety backing thing on the grinder. You know, it's just a wheel spinning.
Too. I can't often reach what I'm trying to reach. Yeah.
So I think it's less likely to pull you in because there's nothing to like pinch you against. You know, you can't get pinched against that guard.
I watch videos somewhat like the ones you talked about, but they're aviation based. And it's always a cascade of mistakes. It's never like one thing went wrong and boom, now the guy's falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
It's like this thing happened and then he reacted improperly to that. And then he reacted improperly to that. And by his fourth mistake, he had no more chances to correct it.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing.
It's always that. There's one where they're on like a pleasure cruise in a fairly large sail / it's got a motor, but it's a big sailboat. And it goes down in the night because they don't have charts for the place that they're in. They don't have the proper charts. They have charts for where they're going, but they don't have charts for the emergency stop that they need to make because they let the noob go up top and she got flung in the waves and her back hit the railing and she's fucked up. So as the boat's going down, the girl with the back injury holds onto the rigging and the mast or whatever as it's going down, gets tangled in it and gets gruesome cuts on her legs from the cabling. Then the good emergency bag gets lost to the sea. The thing that had like the radio, the transponder, the food, the water, the desalination, the sunscreen.
This sounds really helpful.
It's literally like God mode. Like, oh, we're good. They'll be right here. Hey, bring us some champagne because we're pretty happy. Like, you know that. But
we've got so much peanut butter in this thing. You guys got jelly and bread?
Yeah, it was that, but they lose that, and now they're in a shitty dinghy, and they're being buffeted by waves. They're still in a storm, so they go under. They flip it upside down, and they go under. And the girl with the cuts, she's afraid. She's claustrophobic. She's not an ocean girl. They're interviewing the survivors, and there's like a bad bitch in the group. Like she's got her hair up in a very like, I don't know, athletic kind of way, and she can tell she's pretty, but like, I don't know, she's had a lot of sun in her life, you can tell. And she's just like, she was not a seaworthy woman or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I like it. Like, she looked down on the other woman.
She's like, I don't even know what she was doing up there to get flung into the railing. She should have been below deck as she was told. Like every step of the way, she's like talking about how one of the men got themselves killed. And she's like, we did the best we could. We told him not to drink the water. He drank the water. Then he saw a boat and then he started swimming. He swam until we didn't see him anymore. Then we heard him scream as the sharks ate him because the sharks are everywhere beneath the boat because of this woman's bleeding leg. At one point, the guy complained he's like, stop kicking my legs. And she's like, all right, I'm just going to look down and find his fucking legs so I don't bump them anymore. So she sticks her head underneath and she's like, it's a swarm of sharks.
Sharks just bumping their legs.
She's like, there are no less than 30 sharks beneath us.
And they still had their legs in the water?
Only 2 of them ended up living. The rest of them succumbed to their injuries
I guess
or swam away. The woman and one guy ended up living.
Jesus Christ. That sounded like a really good one.
Being
out at sea would be the scariest place to be stranded. There's something very horrifying about the ocean to me. Like even Woody being like, oh, I just sometimes would swim until as far as I could. I'm like, why? Why would you do that?
Because I'm conquest focused.
I think you and I are in particular. So because we've been in the ocean water so much less than Woody. Maybe 1% of what he has would be generous.
Not even 1%. I'm
there's no way it's 1%. There's no way. There's no way it's 1% as much like time in the ocean.
A quarter of a percent.
So to me, it's a very scary place, full of scary lassophobia like shit. You know, when I see that endless blue deep below you, and when I see like apex fucking predators that are in their element, and my dumbass cannot swim. Like I mean, I can stay afloat, but I ain't going nowhere. Okay, I'm not going
you're not like
anywhere.
winning any contests, and you're certainly not winning a contest against a animal that lives there.
Do you know why you can't drink salt water? Do you guys know why?
I think it takes more to process the salt out of your kidneys than you get from the water, right?
You're exactly right. I didn't know that until I was like older than you. You learned it faster than me. But yeah, I was like, I know you can't drink salt water, but it's water and it's the only water available. Why isn't it better than nothing? And it's because like when you have too much salt, you need to drink water. The concentration of salt in this water is greater than the amount of water you get from it. So
it's like that old Simpsons where like they get stranded and Homer misremembers the line. He's like, yeah, remember the line? Water, water everywhere. Let's all have a drink. And then, no, Homer, no, stop.
Human
Homer,
kidneys can
like
only
Flanders is like the pro, right? He's like, oh, don't worry, we've got our survival kit there with rations that'll feed us for a
we got
week.
a survival diddly diddly.
Homer's eating like a week's worth of everyone's food, and now he's got the fucking Swiss Army knife with every blade popped out on a dinghy, and he drops it and it's bouncing with every pokey thing imaginable, and then the gag is it lands and the magnifying glass melts a hole in the boat.
Man, old Simpsons, so funny. So funny.
But today I watched a little documentary about these 3 men who wanted to go to the North Pole in a nitrogen balloon or some shit. And it was like, forgive me, I don't remember the year, but it was around the time when they thought you could go to the North Pole in a nitrogen balloon.
Did Richard Branson get involved a little bit?
Dude, this is like black and white photos times when this happened. So these guys get into this fucking thing and they think they can steer it using ropes they're dragging, but immediately like 2 of the ropes like fall off. I don't know what the balloon was made out of. It was giant. It had a net around it. This is like old timey as fuck. Okay. They ended up nowhere near the North Pole, but way up where it was cold. They get out on the ice because, they've ran out of it won't float anymore. They thought it would last 900 days. That was their initial estimate for how long it would stay aloft.
Ballsy.
It stayed at like 3 weeks or something like that. They ended up on this ice pack, and then that broke away from the mainland and started floating away. So they're hunting polar bears, and they're eating. There are very few polar bear out on the ice, but they're shooting them and eating them, and they're eating the brains and the livers and everything, and like sea life. Their livers are full of vitamin A or some shit. You can't eat those. So they're getting vitamin A poisoning from the seals and the bears.
Taylor, you knew that already?
Yeah. I knew from a documentary. They were talking about how if you eat too much liver, it poisons you. From polar bears specifically because of how much vitamin A accumulates in their liver.
And what an obscure piece of knowledge that both of you have. Hey, careful. Not too much polar bear liver.
Not any.
Keep it reasonable.
There's no room on my plate for a bit of polar bear liver that'll ruin my macros. But anyway, they ended up fucking dying. They went up there and fucking died. I really like those videos of the disasters and stuff. There's so many of these dumbasses who are they'll get 3/4 of the way up a mountain and then the weather will come in and they'll be like, we can do it. And it's like, dude, come back tomorrow or the next day or next week. They always die. I
want to know what the forecast they saw was. That I judge that a lot. Again with the motor stuff, but yeah, in flight sometimes we just got caught in bad weather. What can you do? You can check the forecast. I want to know what the forecast said when you made that call. Yeah, and then I'll judge you.
I mean, back then, the forecasts now aren't even that great, but back then were they?
Well, Kyle mentioned he switched it to mountain climbing. So,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going back and forth between.
I was screaming about my dogs. Shut the fuck up! I
don't know. I wish that there were more shows like that because that's the shit I like. I like that life-threatening, disaster type stuff. I like seeing how people found the will to get out of that stuff, whether they had to cut their hand off or just march through the desert way beyond what they should have been doing. And they talk about hallucinating and hearing things, and it's fucked. Like the guy who had to walk and so far he lost all of his toes. He was hallucinating that his wife's ghost was there urging him on, and he thought his wife had died. He thought that meant his wife was dead and that only the baby remained behind. And so he's like, I gotta go.
That's such a scary situation to imagine yourself in.
Yeah. And
he got himself into it.
like when you watch like the first 15 minutes of every episode, you're like, well, you deserve anything you get.
Well, there's a reason that all of the episodes are like that, and it's not like on a Sunday, Bear Grylls went out for a week-long expedition. Being an expert, he packed exactly enough supplies, and he left safely 7 days later after finding a safe way to survive long-term. Like, these people are guys who like probably went to a subreddit about outdoorsing, bought a bunch of expensive shit, and then took their brand new sneakers out to be the Wild Boys. Like, I would imagine. Because that's just retarded. You have to be a stone cold. Because the one where it was like they were in a blizzard and they got lost on the road, that one is way more understandable than, oh, I decided to go on a cross ocean expedition with no experience whatsoever.
Yeah, I saw one where the guy was there. Oh, he was in some country, some third world jungle country, there to like get rid of mines. For the UN or something like that. He actually had an independent organization that demines war zones. And he's an American white guy, a British white guy in this third world fucking country. And they get kidnapped by, who was Pol Pot? Where was that at?
That was in Cambodia.
That's where he is. He's in fucking Cambodia. And like Pol Pot's like child soldiers, or not child soldiers, there are child soldiers, but his military fucking captures them. And him and his like workers, and they don't understand that he's an independent organization. He's got a translator, but everybody that he talks to is real pissed that he's there, and they're talking about torturing them to death and killing them. And like every step of the way, he's like manipulating them. He's such a smart guy. He's like, so I just thought right away, I couldn't let them treat me like I was a regular prisoner. I was a white man in this country. I was a British man, and that still meant something to these people, maybe. He's like, whether you like it or not, I used it. So when they told me to walk into the river and see if it was too deep for the truck, I refused. And I said that they should send one of his men, and they did. It's like whenever they told me I had to come with them, I said it was against the rules of my organization. And they would think about it a minute, and they'd be like, no, you have to. But they thought about it for a minute. And he was sort of getting into their head that he was to be treated as an equal.
It does seem like a reasonable rule.
And there was a part, he's like a long distance runner. That's his thing. So like there's a part where they let him go take a bath. And like, I guess they were respectful of his privacy. So they like let him go around the way and like strip down. He's like bathing himself in the river. And he's thinking like, if I run, they'll never catch me. I can run up this river. It leads all the way back to town. I run marathons. It would be nothing for me to knock out 10 or 15 miles, up this riverbank. Jeez. But if I leave, they're going to kill all my little Cambodian friends. Oh. And then they interview one of his little Cambodian buddies, and he's like, John, he a brave man. He could have left. Many people would leave me. Many people I know would leave me. John would not leave me.
I like a stand-up guy.
He goes, John is a brave man. And I was like, yeah, he is. And John ends up like he literally befriends the like head poobah of the death squad and like has a nice meal with him where they give him beer and like their best food. And then they like send child soldiers to escort him out of like the war zone. Like he used like
that's
his power of persuasion and his.
That's how Kyle would handle it.
Yeah, that's what I do. Just what John did.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I would try to, but I don't know how that would
charm the head poobah and get it done.
Dude, I'd be like, it's a 15-mile run.
I'd have ran up that I tell you what, I'd have ran up that fucking river and left those Cambodians behind. That's what I'd have probably
done. We need to combine our forces. I think I would have stayed behind, but lacked the charm.
Even
you would have ran, but had the charm.
Even John
together, we could save these people.
He was like, human beings, when we get down to it, are very selfish, and I really wanted to run up that river and leave them behind. Like he was really weighing whether he should abandon these guys.
That's a really fucking brave. Valiant is a better word. That's a valiant way to behave.
He then he got blown up by a mine a couple years later in a different country. In a different country, it blew his right leg off and his right arm.
Oh, he's okay.
So he got a prosthetic leg.
Not on the Kyle spectrum.
So then he got a prosthetic. Hear me out here, because this is how hardcore he is. He got a prosthetic leg and a prosthetic hook arm, and he competed in that thing where they run 7 marathons back to back to back in the Sahara. And there's
but that
footage
just
of
depends
him.
on how charged your electric wheelchair is.
No, he's running with his prosthetic leg through the Sahara Desert.
Oh, a bionic leg. You cheated.
Yeah.
Oh, it does not look a good leg. Yeah, pirates with better gear.
It wasn't a blade leg. They hadn't come out with that yet.
He's in the sand. He's just like a stump.
So it was a big inflatable tire.
No, that guy was awesome. That was
What a
another
hero.
one of those,
John,
I shouldn't be alive, guys. I don't know what
what's his name. John
Grisham.
Grisham.
John Grisham.
Yeah, he wrote the Pelican Brief.